Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Today we have Craig Veal on. Craig, welcome.
Hey, nice to see you, Will.
Thanks for coming on. So you've got you're in Paris right now. You've got three players there. I want to get to the match tomorrow, which is a little bit strange. But first, I wanted to ask you, um, what is the strategy for you and Olivia and Teresa to avoid Shea and Ostapenko in the first round at Roland Garros?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that they're going to get seeded at French Open. So by
Okay.
doing that, hopefully avoiding them in the first round. But yeah, that's the objective anyway. Because I feel like between Olivia and Teresa, and then also Des, I think played against Ostapenko like five, maybe even six times already this year. So it's felt pretty relentless.
That's so tough. Yeah, I feel like the odds of drawing them first round three times before like the end of May is, I mean, one in a thousand, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's so
yeah, yeah.
so wild. And yeah, Ostapenko's, I don't know, maybe the best, one of the top two doubles players in the world over the last couple years. So it's like just such a tough matchup. Um, so you're in Paris. You've got Olivia and Teresa playing, and tomorrow they're playing against the other player you coach, Des. What do you do in that situation?
So yeah, if anyone that I coach, if they ever play each other, the situation for that match is that I don't coach anybody, but then I kind of just have a conversation with them all about would they rather me be there and just watch the match from a distance, or is it better for me just not to be there at all? So that would just be a quick conversation to see what everyone's preference is for tomorrow. I've had it before where I've sat and watched a match, and I've liked doing it that way. But I've also had matches that I've sat and watched, and I've hated being sat there watching. So I kind of leave it up to them to decide what they want really.
Okay. Have you had that conversation yet?
No, not yet. No, we're going for dinner in a little while. So yeah, we'll
Okay.
have a chat with them.
Okay. What do you think they're gonna say for tomorrow?
They'll probably all say the same thing, which is don't mind. They'll all say I don't mind.
I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. And I think to be honest, tomorrow I'll probably go and watch that match.
Yeah.
Just because there's some things that I want to watch out for that everyone's been working on different bits. So I wouldn't mind seeing it because sometimes these 125Ks you can't get a recording of the match. So I would actually quite like to go and watch it.
Okay. Is it a little bit like lower stress since it's a 125K versus maybe if they were playing each other in like the semis of a 1000 or something?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
It's definitely a bit lower stress. And yeah, it feels a little bit more low key. So it's a lot easier for me to go there and watch.
Yeah. So I want to talk more about the season, but first, share with us how you got started coaching on the doubles tour.
So I first started coaching when I was 17. So I first started coaching when I was 17, working at an academy, doing all sorts of coaching, mini tennis, beginner adults, a really wide range of different levels and ages. And over the years, I kind of was coaching quite a few good young juniors who I started coaching when they were 8 or 9, and then I just stayed with them for sort of 10 years until they got to the end of juniors. And um, my transition from that was naturally kind of going into working with a few pro players. And actually, I got started in the doubles in the kind of double side of things through Erin Routliffe. So
Mhm.
she was coming to play qualifying at Wimbledon back in 2018, and my friend was coaching her from a distance in New Zealand, and he just asked me to go and watch and give some feedback on the match. So I went there and watched her, and she was playing with Alexa Guarachi at the time. So I went and watched them play, took a load of notes, gave them some stats and some numbers from their match that I felt were important, and they really liked the feedback. So they just asked me to come back for a few more matches through that time, and then through that experience, got to know Alexa really well, and Alexa ended up asking me to work with her, and so I started working with her in 2018.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I feel like most of the coaches get started just through a connection like that. Would you agree with that? Just like somebody you know?
Yeah, I mean, I was during that time when I first met them. There was a boy that I was coaching who was playing junior Wimbledon, so I was in and
Mm,
around the grass season anyway. And then it was just that I had like an afternoon. I had an afternoon free where he wasn't playing, and I said, "Yeah, I'll go along and watch," sort of thing.
uh,
And yeah, and that was kind of how that started. And the first probably 6 months that I was helping Alexa out, it was all remote stuff because she was ranked maybe 120, 110 in doubles at that time. And the prize money that these guys are making at that level, it's they can't afford to have a coach traveling with them.
mhm.
So I was doing a lot of remote work with Alexa, and I had two or three other players that I was working with. And then gradually her ranking kind of gradually got higher and higher and higher to the point where I was able to go on the road with her quite a lot.
Okay. And how'd you get started in coaching in general? I assume you played tennis as a junior and just kind of fell in love with it, or?
Yeah, I played tennis as a junior. I played tennis as a junior, and then when I was 16, 17, I was playing a bit, but I've always wanted to. I've always kind of liked coaching. I've always liked the idea of coaching. And I was living in London at the time. I'm not from London, but I was living there at the time at this academy where I was playing as well. And basically, I decided I wanted to stay living in London. And my parents said, "Well, if you want to stay up in London, you've got to find a way to pay for it." And that's how I got into coaching. Basically, was to start paying for myself to live in London. And then just I really fell in love with coaching. I love it. It's I can't imagine doing anything different, to be honest, at the moment.
What aspect of coaching do you love so much?
Uh, I like the person aspect. I really I would say that my take on it is I coach people first, and then the tennis comes secondary. So I really like coaching people, and a lot of the way that I work is based on that. So it's not just about forehands, backhands, tennis. It's kind of a more holistic approach to people in general, and that's the big thing that I really enjoy. I'm fortunate that pretty much every coaching relationship that I've had has been a very long term relationship. Um, you know, Alexa, I was with for almost 6 years. Des, I've coached on and off for almost 5 years now. Liv's been 3 or 4 years.
Hmm.
I was coaching a male player called Arthur Ferry. I was with him for 10 years. So yeah, I've always had quite long term coach relationships, and that's kind of how I like to work.
Hmm. Well, what does that coaching the person look like? Do you have like a kind of framework for that?
Yeah, I have like a framework that I work with, and a lot of it's about like I'm trying to understand where they're at just in their life as well, like away from tennis. So I like
Hmm.
to kind of dig into that a little bit, and then you know the my feeling is that the more someone is in a better space away from the court, the more likely that they're going to be able to perform on the court, because most of these players that you're working with, they're very very good at playing tennis. So can you get them to perform on a more consistent basis? Can you get them to perform at a slightly higher level year on year? And a lot of the time, that's not going to be through hitting a forehand better or a serve better. It's going to be, can they bring themselves to the right level on the court more frequently and over again?
Hmm. So what about if, like, as you're saying that, that makes perfect sense to me, and I'm thinking about like a lot of listeners here, club level players. Um, and let's say like they are having maybe not the best time in their life or just had a bad day or something and they do have a match. Are there like techniques or strategies they can use to still perform at a consistent basis or like to kind of reset and block out some of that personal stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big one that we always talk about is like you're a performer before you're a player. So a bit like an actor, for example, when they go on stage every night, they're going to give a performance, and when you play a tennis match, it's the same thing. It's you have to separate who like yourself as a person away from tennis from the person who's playing a match. Um, and the first thing is what's the energy that you're bringing to the court. And sometimes when you're in a bad space yourself, the best thing you can do is just be a great partner for the other person. So rather than worrying about yourself so much, can you actually just really focus on your partner, and how can I lift them up? How can I make them be the best player that they can be on that day? That's one thing that I feel like can help people. When they're in a bad headspace themselves, it's you can get really in your own head about things. So actually, sometimes focusing on something external that you might be able to influence can be a really helpful thing. I also think, when you're in a match, the ability to know that you can be playing really badly, not playing fantastically well, but if you compete hard and you bring great energy, you can often get the ball rolling and get started to play better that way. Yeah, I think it's
Mhm.
different the way that I work. If I was working with somebody, for example, just on a 2 week basis, going to a tournament versus someone that I'm going to be in a coaching relationship with for a long time, I'm going to approach that very differently. You're probably not going to get into that stuff as much. You're going to talk probably a little bit more about things that you can tackle in the short term,
Sure.
which is strategy, being physically prepared to play, being as well prepared for one individual match as you can be, versus
Sure.
working with someone for a long time. It's very different.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I like the advice of focusing on your partner too, and trying to lift them up. I think that makes a ton of sense. And yeah, like getting out of your own head, that seems like an optimal way to do it as a doubles
Yeah,
player. Um, so talk a little bit about this part of the season. We're in the middle of clay season, the French Open coming up. Do you like this part of the season? How does it compare to kind of the rest of the year?
yeah. I mean, I like this time of year for the simple fact that it's in Europe, and I live in London, and it just means that I'm not so far away from home. I've got two small children, so sometimes in between tournaments, if there's 2 or 3 days where I can get home, I'll sometimes go home to see them. So I like that aspect of it for me on a personal level. I also like the clay. I quite like the clay generally. I've players that I've coached in the past have a fairly good record at Roland Garros, and yeah, I've just always quite enjoyed it. I wouldn't say I love Roland Garros as a tournament to work at. They make it quite difficult at times for doubles people and for coaches. It's not the easiest place to work at, but I've got some good
Mhm.
memories there, which I think is why I quite like the clay season.
Is there anything like strategy tips or tactics that work better on clay than other surfaces?
Yeah, I mean, I think on the clay, I mean, on the clay for me, like two back as a return option, all of a
Mm,
sudden becomes really effective. Especially if you've got two players who've got great ground strokes. They can really neutralize the serving team, get into a lot of points. And it's not easy to poach and put balls away when you're playing against a team that are playing two back. I think at the very top level in men's doubles, it's maybe a bit easier because they're taller, they get closer to the net, so they have more angles to finish the ball off the court. But probably at the club level and stuff, players aren't getting as close to the net, so to put the ball away to the side of the court is a little bit more difficult. So I think playing two back on the clay, if you're playing a very good serving team or a good net team, it's a good way to neutralize their strengths. I also think as well, like if you're someone who's got a really strong kick serve, it can be really effective on a clay court. Or if I'm a player who loves their forehand, it's great because on the juice court I can serve and get forehands easy, and on the ad court I can just stand over towards the alleys, put my serve in, and then go to work with my forehand. So yeah, I think that those are some of the benefits of the clay compared to the faster surfaces.
How do you manage? So you've got Olivia and Teresa, which fortunately is the same team, and then Des, who's had I think five different partners this year. I was looking
Yeah.
earlier. I think I counted that right. How do you manage three players at each of these tournaments? What's kind of your process for that?
So I mean, basically, it's fairly simple because a lot of the practices that I'll do with Liv and Teresa, we'll do as a team. Very rarely do we do as much like as many individual sessions. We do some, but it's more team based. And then with Des, I do a lot of individual sessions with her, and then she tries to find maybe another doubles player who's playing with a singles player. She'll try to link up with one of those to play practice points with. But I think the way that I would coach the team of Liv and Teresa versus Des is different because when it's Des playing with different partners, mixing around a lot differently, you have to really focus in on what are the elements that she can control from her side and how can she impact a match as much as possible as an individual. Whereas with Liv and Teresa, we talk a lot more about what can we do as a team to be effective together here. So the way that I work with them is different. You know, that all three of them have different needs, but one of them is a team and the other one is an individual. So you have to manage that a little bit differently.
What are some of the keys for you and Des if she's playing a tournament with a new partner? And let's say this week she's playing with Nicole Melchor Martinez, who's a good doubles player. But
Yeah.
let's say she's playing with more of a singles player who's not necessarily prioritizing doubles and doesn't have the kind of doubles mindset. What are some of the, I guess, questions you ask or conversations you have, either with Des or with the partner?
I mean, to be honest, there's quite a range of different partners in terms from the singles player point of view. Like some of them, are quite interested in, hearing about, right, what some strategies to try and use
Mm,
against these guys. Some of them just want to be left to just play. They just want to serve, return, hit the ball, and just play.
okay.
Um, and some of them are good enough to, and some of these players are good enough to do that because often their serve and return level is stronger than some of the doubles players. They just they just have bigger, better serves, and they can kind of put the return wherever they want. So it very much depends on which part on which of those types of players she's playing with. So with Des, we'll focus a lot more on what are the things that are within her control in a match and try to put as much of her focus there as possible. Um, so that's been a big focus for her this year because last year she played with Caroline a lot, which was great. So we kind of got a bit of a team vibe going, which was really really good. But then this year she's obviously played with multiple different partners, so that's been a little bit more difficult to get that same vibe. So we've had to focus a lot on what can she control, what can she take care of, what does her role look like depending on who she plays with, and yeah, that's kind of how I approach it with Des.
Okay. So what about for like, let's say there's a club player listening and they're playing a
Yeah,
tournament next week and they're playing with a new partner. Maybe like two or three questions they should ask their new partner. Aside from like, do you play deuce or ad?
yeah. Okay, so I think the first one would be the first one I would try and actually ask someone is uh, how do you want me to be like as your partner? Like if you're making mistakes, do you want me to like come and like say don't worry, it's okay? Because some people love that, some people hate it, some people don't want to hear that from their partner. So the
Yeah.
first thing would be like what type of energy do you want me to bring to the court? How do you want me to be? How do you want me to behave? And then the second thing would just be around whether they prefer to serve at the start of the match. Like in that team, would they rather be the first person to serve? Because I think often people don't talk about that. They kind of just go on there, and then when they get to the court, they go, "Oh well, I'll just serve first." When actually, it could be one of them gets a little bit more nervous, and maybe they need to get into the match a little bit more before they can free up a little bit. So it might be that would probably be a very good question to ask. And then the last one would just be around overheads. How are we going to
Mm.
call overheads? Am I shouting me? Am I shouting you? Just so
Mm.
you're really clear on the communication of that, um, because I think that though I think that's pretty important as well.
Yeah. Yeah. The communication is so key. And I love the first answer. You like rather leading with a strategy thing, it's more of like an emotional thing. And how can you get your partner to be the performer, right? And
Yeah,
to execute at a high level and to feel good about their game because you're right, like there are so many players who after they miss a bad shot, like they don't want their partner talking to them, but a lot of
yeah,
them need that support and like you need
yeah,
to know that. Like that's really important.
yeah. I think
So I
that
love that you
just
led with
yeah,
that.
just going back on that, I think strategy is actually is often made out to be such a huge part of of success at a high level, but fundamentally, like if I don't go on the court and perform, the strategy is redundant because if I'm if I'm going out there and I'm I've got a really clear game plan of what I want to do, but actually my attitude's not very good. I'm not bringing the right level of energy to the court. Then it doesn't matter. So I always like to talk about that first. And whenever we do team talks or team chats before matches, the performer's always going to be the first thing we're going to try and talk
Mm.
about. Yeah,
So I want to talk a little bit about Olivia's progress. So over the last few years, she's continued to, I guess, almost like cut her ranking in half every year,
Mm-hmm.
just about. What do you attribute that success to, that consistent success? Because it's easy to do that from one year to the next, but she's been able to do that several years in a row now.
Um, I mean, I think the first thing would be is that her her commitment to her own development is really good. Like I like she's her attitude toward her own development is fantastic. There's a very clear process always about matches. You know, you plan the match, you play the match, you review the match every single time relentlessly. Like it doesn't matter if it was good, if it was bad. It's relentless of just that cycle of reviewing and looking for improvement. Um, it's very simple, but it's really hard to do that over and over and over again. And I would say that that is probably the biggest thing from her point of view that she can influence is that her attitude towards learning over and over again is really good. So that's that. And then I would say this the second thing is she is always, you know, she's always had a pretty good support team. Her coach back home, Tom, who she works with at university, is fantastic and is great with her, and she's always been able to rely on him for like feedback on video and things like that, and he's great. And then she's also benefited over the years from, as a federation, the LTA do support doubles quite a lot. So the way that I first started working with Liv was through the federation. I do some consulting work for them, and so she's always, you know, it's very rare for a doubles player of that ranking to have, I think, such a good level of support. You know, until you're ranked probably inside the top 50, it's very difficult to probably pay a coach to come and help you.
Hmm.
Whereas Liv's been able to access that. She's had the support for quite a long time. So that would be, I think, the two key parts of it. And then from a game perspective, her game has just developed year on year in multiple different ways. You know, she's always been a really good service partner. She's always had great skills in that department. But you know, when I first started working with her, probably 4 years ago, she used to just hit her backhand over and over again and wouldn't really hunt her forehand. And it took quite a long time to get her to really believe and buy into the fact that her forehand is the weapon. If she positions herself right and unloads on it, her forehand's really high quality.
Hmm.
And it's something that I find quite common with a lot of players. You know, they've grown up with this idea, especially in the female game. They've got a great backhand, but a weak forehand, um, and it's really really common. And I think what a lot of them don't realize is that by taking the forehand in the ad court more frequently as a right hander, it's so much more effective than just hitting backhands again and again. Even if you've got a great backhand, it's so much more difficult for the opposing net player to poach the forehand. You can hold the shot a lot longer on a forehand than you can a backhand because the contact point's a little bit further back. You can shape the ball differently with a forehand than you can a backhand. There's so many benefits to doing it, and I would say that's one thing that she really bought into after a little bit of time. She bought into that, and she's relentlessly improved that over and over again every year.
Yeah, that's a huge takeaway that club players can do too. Like if you play in the ad court, and this is something I do, like run around your backhand. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, when I'm that net player and I see the ad court player running around their backhand, like I like my knees kind of buckle. Like I don't know, I want to poach, but like I know they're hitting a forehand, which like you said has more pace, more shape. It's going to be a more
yeah,
difficult volley, and they can take it inside in. So it's like there's just a lot of
yeah.
benefits to that.
It also involves less running. If I'm in the ad court and I go and stand in the alleys, like if I have my feet inside the alleys,
Right.
um, I don't have to run. If a player hits a really good wide angle shot, I can just get there in one step. Whereas actually, if the opposing team start hitting the ball through the middle, that's great news because it means I'm still hitting my forehand and my partner might be able to get some touches on a volley now.
Hmm.
So yeah, if you want to do less running as a club doubles player in the ad court, just stand in the alleys.
Yeah. Yeah, and your partner can hug middle more
Yeah,
because if you're hitting a forehand, assuming you hit a quality forehand, that's going to be a very difficult ball for that other ad court player to redirect, right? Because it's
exactly. Yeah,
probably going to be heavy, it's going to be have more pace, so that'll allow your partner to get more involved anyways. So yeah,
yeah.
tons of benefits. Um, Why is Des, or what makes Des so good at mixed doubles?
Well, she plays with British players all the time, so that definitely helps. No, I mean, I think Des is a great. She's a really good partner for the guys because I think um, she's kind of got two personalities when she plays with them. Like, there's the side that's like quite fun, quite relaxed, and stuff like that. But she also will kind of give the guys some crap as well. Like if they're maybe not having the right energy or something, she'll often like say something to them because she's been playing with the same either Joe or Neil for quite a long time now, and I think the fact that they're really good friends. I'm really good friends with those guys as well. I think it just means that the team chemistry is generally always pretty good. And then from a game point of view, I think she's a great returner. She got great returns. She can use the chip lob. She's got quite a lot of variation with her return when she's performing well. She can really mix her returns about well. And then also the other thing is that she, as a lefty, I feel like a lot of the guys struggle off of her lefty serve.
Mm.
She kind of, because it doesn't come through with the same kind of pace as some of the guys. I think her serve sometimes hitting the slower lefty serve. A lot of the men really struggle with it, and actually, it gives Neil a lot of time to fake and poach from the bounce to the other player hitting making contact with the return. He can actually influence the returner quite a lot. So I think that's one of the reasons why she's had quite a bit of success.
This might be a question I have to ask her, but do you have an example of her kind of giving her partner some crap and like
Um, yeah, I mean, I know with Joe at US, I mean, this is going back to 2021. I can't remember. I don't know if I remember the story well or not, but I know that there were times during those matches where she would like try and pull him up, sort of thing, and say, "Come on, Joe,
yeah,
like, come
yeah,
on, we got to lift it here a little bit."
yeah.
But with Neil, sometimes she'll crack a joke. So sometimes if Neil's feeling a
Mm,
little bit tense on the bench or whatever, she'll crack a joke, and you'll see them laughing, and you know
okay.
I'll know what that joke is already because she's already pre-planned it before the match. We'll talk about that before the match sometimes. What joke are you going to have lined up today just in case if you need it. So you know, there's yeah.
Can you share a joke with us, or are they a little bit
Uh,
not
I mean
safe
the
for
no 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 no.
public?
I mean the one that she used during, I think it was during their run to French final last year. I think the one that she used, it was maybe in their, I can't remember if it was quarterfinal or semi-final match. But I think she said to him something like, "Oh, what's a pirate's favorite letter?" And he's gone R, and she's gone, "No, it's C." So, and you can just see them chuckling like
So
a
just like dumb cheesy jokes.
yeah, exactly. Like it's
like
like
it.
dumb dad jokes, which probably is my influence as well because that's what I spend a lot of my time doing as a dad as well. So yeah.
Yeah. It's good. I like that a lot. So the last couple questions here. If I were to ask, and you can answer this, I guess however you like one of for one player or I'm sorry, for one for each player or just as a whole.
Yeah.
So if I were to ask Olivia, Teresa, and Des, what makes Craig a good tennis coach? What would they say?
Um, that's a good question. I'm not sure on that. I think uh, I think it's different for each of them. Like with Des, it's a bit different because we've both probably like grown together at certain times during her career because when I first started working with her, I'd maybe been coaching at like more like a tour level for maybe 2 years, 3 years. I hadn't been doing it as long. So when I first started with Des, it probably would have been more so around like the insights that I would bring to a game because I'm pretty heavy on the stats and stuff. I'll tag matches and do things like that. So I think for Des, that would have been what she would have said at the start of our probably coaching when I first started working with her. And then for Teresa, I know that like she likes the way that I coach during matches. Um, I think I have quite a good influence on her in matches. I think I have quite a good read on when are the moments where I need to be more like assertive and louder and more vocal and have more presence as a coach, and when are the moments where I just need to remind her like you're doing fine, like be very calm, be very relaxed. So that's probably it for those two. And then for Liv, it would probably be, I would say, more like the experiences that I've had over the last what 7 or 8 years now. I've built up quite a lot of experience at tournaments at this level. Had lots of different experiences in different scenarios. Grand Slam finals to like playing the first round of 60Ks, 25Ks. I've got quite a broad experience of professional tennis, and yeah, probably just the experience for her has probably helped her when she's playing. She played Rome. This is the first time she's played Rome and Madrid this year. So even
Hmm.
little things like me knowing where everything is, and she doesn't feel quite like such a rookie sort of thing. She kind of
Yeah.
feels a bit more comfortable in the environment. So maybe that's what they would say. I don't know. You'd have to ask them, but
Yeah.
those are maybe the different things that they would say.
Yeah. I'll ask him at some point, but that's good. Um, so last topic here. I want to talk about just kind of doubles in general and how we can make it more popular. I'm going to ask this a little bit differently than I normally do, though. So you're in the clay swing. You talked a little bit earlier about how the French Open is makes it a little bit hard for doubles coaches to work at and doesn't necessarily prioritize doubles as much. Um, how does the kind of clay swing, European swing compare in terms of like doubles crowds, how the tournaments are promoting them to the rest of the season, and what tournaments do you feel like do a good job and we can kind of take away from those and implement that across the rest of the tour? Answer that however you'd like. I know that was a lot.
Um, no, no. I mean, I think one of the things that I feel. I mean, this is just from the theme, the WTA perspective, not so much maybe the men's perspective, but
Sure.
generally the tournaments that are well supported in singles are also well supported in doubles. Like, um, so when you go to obviously Indian Wells, Miami, especially Indian Wells, obviously they watch a lot of doubles at Indian Wells. They really like it there, but it's generally very busy for singles and doubles at Indian Wells. Then you go to Miami, it's really, really busy for singles, and it's still generally very busy for doubles. Now, I go to the Middle East in February, there's not really anybody watching singles or doubles at those tournaments. Like it's not like it's not like you've got 10,000 people or 5,000 people on center court watching a women's singles match and then only 3 people watching a doubles. You've
Hmm.
not got many people watching singles or doubles when you go to the Middle East.
Yeah.
Um, and then on the clay swing, it's reasonably well supported. I don't feel that the doubles issue is so big on the women's side as it is on the men's side. I think on the men's side, it's a far bigger talking point than it is on the WTA tour. Because also on the WTA tour, you have a lot of the top singles players play doubles as well. So
Hmm.
we don't have the same issues as the guys, but I feel like we're getting lumped in to the same conversations as the men,
Yeah.
even though I don't feel that we have the same challenge. Steve Simon spoke to a group of coaches in Toronto last year, and their opinion was that they were actually very much happy with their doubles product. They didn't feel like they needed to change anything. They felt like everything was in a pretty good place. And actually, sometimes at those 1 week Masters events or the ones that are a bit shorter, they don't want the top singles players playing doubles all the time because it messes with their scheduling.
Hmm.
If they've got Coco Gauff during a 1 week Masters event playing singles and doubles, and she's winning matches in both of them, that's a nightmare for them because they want to put her in a night match. So
Yeah.
this whole narrative around more singles players playing, I don't think it's actually much of an issue on the female side. I think we have the balance. We have the balance pretty good. Um,
Hmm.
I don't feel like there's a massive difference in what's being watched. Um, of course, the very top players, Sabalenka, Coco, the top 5 to 10 players in the world, they're always going to draw massive crowds, but they're also going to draw massive crowds to their practice sessions as well. But
Hmm.
you go and watch 2 girls or 2 guys ranked 50, 60 in the world playing, they're not pulling in much of a bigger crowd than if you put doubles players on a court. I
Yeah.
think this. I think the narrative is. I don't think the narrative is that accurate at the moment around what's being pushed out about people don't watch doubles. Um,
Hmm.
I,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think yeah, I think one issue that we run into is the a lot of the images you might see like going around Instagram and Twitter are the like semi-final matches at the US Open or something when it's on Louis
Yeah,
Armstrong and there's
yeah,
not many people there and it's
yeah,
like an empty stadium. And
yeah.
I think that is um I don't know, kind of cherry picking, first of all, like because
Oh, definitely.
that's not a good sample of like the general doubles tour, but it's also a problem of just promotion for me at the tournaments. So like,
Yeah,
when people buy a US Open semifinal day ticket, like how many of them actually know that the doubles is happening on Louis Armstrong? Like they're probably
yeah,
just going into Ash and not even thinking about it. So if the US Open could promote the doubles a bit more or and not to pick on them, like all of the majors and even the 1000 level events around that kind of semifinal and final day
yeah.
um, could help.
Yeah, no, I think the way that it's tricky because like you say they definitely cherry pick certain pictures that show the doubles in that light. But if we were all being really adamant about doing that for singles, we could probably do that for singles as well. Like, how many times have I been at a Masters 1000 somewhere, and you've got two singles players, and it's a 7 o'clock match in the evening, and there's not that many people watching.
Yeah.
I think that there's multiple occasions where I've also seen that as a coach as well. Um,
Hmm.
I do think for the guys, it's a very different challenge than what we have, um, because I think a lot of the stuff that I see around this discussion is very based on the men's doubles game. I
Hmm.
don't think a lot of the stuff is as true for the women's. I mean, you've only got to look at the Irani Paolini doubles match in Rome. Like it's wild. I mean, Caroline and Des
Yeah.
played them in the semis of Rome last year on centre court, and it was it was like being in a slam final. Like it was deafening the noise in there.
Hmm.
I know when Des and Alexa they played Coco and Katie McNally in Cincinnati maybe 4 years ago, and it was standing room only, and there were people queuing up to get in. So,
Hmm.
and that was a first round match. It's a first
Yeah.
round doubles match, and people are queuing to get in. So, I think you can shape the narrative whichever way you want to do it. I just think because there's so many more people that are singles based and more people that want to push that, it comes out a lot more.
Yeah. So last comment, and I'll give you a chance to reply, and then we'll hop off here. So one thing somebody told me at Indian Wells, this was a coach on the men's side. They said that they thought one reason the men's doubles might be struggling a bit more than the women's is that on the men's doubles side, you can get into these tournaments with your singles ranking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Whereas on the women's side, like if Coco wants to keep playing, and of course she can get a wild card, but like, Siniakova, for example, or Taylor Townsend, like if they want to keep playing doubles, they have to keep their doubles ranking up. Whereas like Andrei Rublev or whoever, like Dimitrov, whoever from the men's side, like they just have to have a high singles ranking and they can get in.
Yeah, I mean it's yeah the entry procedures for the two tours are different.
Hmm.
Um, if I give you like a 60, if in a 16 draw on the women's side, you'll get 11 teams or 12 teams in on the advanced entry. Then there'll be three teams that will get in on site, which is the best of their singles or doubles ranking they can use on site. But in
Okay.
advanced, it's purely based on your doubles ranking. In advanced, it's
Uh,
only based on your doubles ranking. So, um, so yeah, like the doubles players maybe have a bit more protection on the women's side in that once they get their ranking to a certain level, they know that they can get into tournaments. Whereas for the guys, you've probably got to be inside the top 30-ish, I would say, for the men's to make sure you're getting in the Masters tournaments because the
mhm.
singles players can use their rankings. Um, I think if the men move to the same system as the women, I think you would run into the problem that the singles guys just wouldn't bother playing. I don't think they would.
Mm.
I don't think changing the entry procedure is going to all of a sudden make Andrei Rublev think, right, I've got to play 10 doubles events this year to keep my doubles ranking.
Mm.
Um, because the only reason they're doing it is to get an extra match here or there.
Yeah.
Whereas some of the girls that are playing singles and doubles, the prize money on WTA tour is not as high as it is on the men's tour. So, okay, for Coco and those very top ones, the money doesn't matter. But for some of those slightly lower ranked singles players, they're earning a good amount of money by playing more doubles. it probably covers their coaching costs and expenses for the year for some of those guys. So I think
Yeah.
I think that there is the two tours are just so different. The two tours,
Yeah.
the way that they're operated, the entry procedures, the nature of what players ranked at a certain ranking need on the men's tour versus the women's tour. A guy ranked 35, 40 in the world in singles is making very different money to a female ranked around that ranking.
Hmm.
So I think it's very different.
Yeah. I love these conversations because I learn something new every time. Craig, thanks a ton for hopping on. And hopefully we can do it again at some point in the future.
Sounds good. Great to see you all.